This video essay will demonstrate the way Everything Everywhere All at Once represents a contemporary cultural shift towards absurdism within mainstream cinema. Algerian-born Frenchman Albert Camus revolutionized our understanding of nihilism and existentialism with his absurdist philosophical theory. This theory posited that the search for meaning in a meaningless universe was a paradoxical endeavor which has created a space known as the absurd. The nature of this idea sparked a movement that would later be infused with various avant-garde mediums such as literature, music, and cinema. These elements would later influence and push the boundaries of mainstream cinema. Within this essay, experimental films that have entered the mainstream, such as Dr. Strangelove by Stanley Kubrick and Everything Everywhere All at Once by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, will be analysed to demonstrate the means with which absurdism was and is utilised for mainstream appeal. Three key points will be highlighted to argue this thesis. The first, that comic distancing is employed to highlight the absurd and garner popularity. The second, that the decline of institutionalized religion has resulted in a shift of balance towards absurdism. And the third, that Everything Everywhere All at Once employs the same use of absurdity to provide relief and garner popularity with post-pandemic families. In the early to mid-20th century, a post-war humanity emerged with a newfound potential for nuclear annihilation. These remnants of an unconscionable past, the relief of peace, and conversely, the anxiety of contemplating an uncertain nuclear future, left many preconceived notions washed away, especially those concerning God's will in relation to meaning, religious identity, and the self. Amidst the malaise of these existential quandaries, director Stanley Kubrick released Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Most astounding was that despite the increased nuclear fear during the peak of the Cold War, millions of Americans flooded the theaters to watch this satirical doomsday prophecy. The answer, according to Hein Knudsen, lies in the psychology of comic distancing, i.e. the notion that emotional responses to stimuli can be modulated based on four dimensions of proximity: temporal, hypothetical, social, and spatial distance. Kubrick utilized these psychological techniques alongside employing absurdity through various aspects of the film. He included preposterous narrative developments, as when General Ripa set off the first nuclear strike due to a conspiracy theory that Soviets were fluoridating American water supplies. He encouraged exaggerated performance and cast comic actor Peter Sellers in 3 roles to break immersion, reminding the audience of the movie's fictitious nature. He also worked with Ken Adam to build extravagant, unrealistic sets such as the President's War Room, which undercut the potentially serious scenes within them. All these elements were designed by Kubrick to give space for the absurd and allow audiences to face their fear of nuclear war, and as a result the film received immediate positive reception and succeeded critically against similar movies such as Failsafe. It also served as an influence for future anti-war media such as MASH, War Games, and even the Colbert Report. This served as one of the first absurdist responses to societal trauma in history, as opposed to the previous responses such as nihilism or theology. The fact that theology and nihilism exists as an alternative means of response to societal trauma is a valid counter-argument against the cultural shift of mainstream cinema towards absurdism. In fact, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, evidence points to the renewed faith of folk religiosity in Russia as a response to this traumatic event. Why then has religion declined in the West, thereby affecting mainstream Hollywood cinema? Mary Eberstadt points to the family factor in how the West really lost God, highlighting the key relationship between church-going and marriage as a result of family dynamics and how secularization has affected this relationship. The result of this, as reflected upon in Camus' The Plague, with a contemporary lens from Wessel Bentley, demonstrates the 3 responses to human suffering in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic. This essay postulates that with the decline of religiosity in the West, audience and society as a whole have turned to existentialism and absurdism as a necessity, thereby shifting the mainstream landscape. However, with the release of Everything Everywhere All at Once, a cultural shift has been made from existentialism towards absurdism. The release of Everything Everywhere All at Once to post-pandemic audiences echoes the release of Dr. Strangelove to post-war audiences in 1964. It does this by using absurdism to provide relief to the societal fears and anxieties around post-isolation and healing. The Daniels provide various absurd elements such as the concept of the everything bagel, a MacGuffin-like apocalyptic black hole which symbolizes the destruction of all meaning. This is held against the concept of the googly eye, a symbol for the gift of meaning and life. These 2 symbols are reflected throughout the character journeys of Evelyn and her daughter Joy. The quote, "Nothing matters," is used by Joy to establish her nihilistic views on the multiverse, and throughout the film, Evelyn begins to succumb to this worldview. This storyline is reflected in Asian American immigrant families, as stated by Tang. Why try to heal, to survive, to love, and to reconcile when the odds are always against you in a family already burdened with generations of trauma and division, or in a country whose structures were historically designed to exclude immigrants? Why remain with our families when the generational and linguistic divide between family members often feels as if we live in different universes? Within the storyline, this nihilism is reconciled by Evelyn and Joy's conversation towards the end of the movie, highlighted especially in the following quote.
Here, all we get are a few specks of time where any of this actually makes any sense.
Then I will cherish these few specks of time.
This concludes each key point, highlighting that following traumatic societal events, absurdism has been utilized to heal and provide joy to affected audiences by providing a space in which they can grapple with fears and anxiety from a psychological distance. Dr. Strangelove has exemplified this occurrence through its handling of nuclear fear just the same way as Everything Everywhere All at Once has with its approach to themes of family dynamics, isolation, and mental health. The value these films provide, coupled with the decline of religiosity and the establishment of the three societal responses in Camus' The Plague, outlines a cultural shift from religiosity to nihilism to absurdism within contemporary mainstream cinema.